you. Fire. I'll take you to burn. Fire. I'll take you to learn. I'll see you burn. You fought hard and you saved and earned, but all of it's gone to burn. And you mind your time and mind, you know you've really been so bad. Now's your time, burn your mind, you fall apart, you fall behind. Oh no, oh no, you're gonna burn. Fire to destroy all you've done. Fire to end all you've become. I'll feel you burn. Destroy all you've done. You've been living like a little young girl, in every middle of your little world. I'll feel you burn. Your time You've been living like a little girl in the middle of your little world. Mind your time, mind you know you've really been so blind. Now's your time, mind you fall apart and fall behind. Fire, I'll take you to burn. Fire, I'll take you to learn. You're gonna burn. You're gonna burn. You're gonna burn. Take you to burn. Now's your time, mind you fall apart and fall behind. Fire, I'll take you to burn.
This is an awakening, and this is an opportunity for us to bring so much awareness to the situation that whoever they are, whatever force is behind this, and I don't know, but I think the more awareness that we can bring, this is our opportunity to stop it and to create an awakening around the planet to help, because this is an international issue. I've got people calling me from all these different countries, scientists. This is a colossal problem with the environment and what's going to happen with all these chemicals. How do we protect these people from what they're being exposed to right now? Normal protocols are not being met. So I don't know who it is. I don't know how it happened. But what I do know is with awareness and with spreading the message that we can possibly stop this plan, and it can be the beginning of the end for the enemy, and it can be the beginning of a new awakening for our world. And I believe this is the siren call. This is a call to action for communities of people in the world, not just our country, not just Hawaii, but for everybody to start paying attention and waking up, which you've been trying to do for a long time. I believe this is the chance, and we do it for the children. We do it for the children. If you won't do it for the children, if you won't do it for Maui, what we call paradise, if you won't step up and defend this, you're not going to defend it when it comes to Kansas. You're not going to defend it when it comes to some small town and in some rural place that no one cares about. If you won't step up and help Maui, if you won't do it for this place, guess what? They're going to take everything. There's a complete authoritarian control happening here, and more government officials are piling in every single day, and we're crying out to the American public, we're crying out to the world to take action. This is not armchair quarterback time. It's not just guys like you that have been telling the truth for years. It's time for people to mobilize and do something. This is a call to action. And it's time to move the needle on the media, because the media is not getting access. So all we have left is we the people. All we have left is platforms and sharing, and you being a digital warrior, going all night long until your fingers bleed. Do things. I think this is a call to action. This isn't just something you watch from afar and go, oh, how interesting. You do something, whatever it is. Say a prayer and ask God, what are you to do? Because the battle is here. It's now. It's happening. And we need to mobilize. We can pick on Maui. It's this little place in the middle of nowhere. Guess what? This is United States soil, and if you're a patriot, it's time to do whatever it is that God is calling and asking you to do.
The only people survived are the ones that went through the barricade. It was a choreographed disaster. You know, the pattern of it is just too obvious. You know, not only were they blocking where I was at, the other end of town, I found out they had Maui Electric was trying to set the poles up during the wind, and they had the highway blocked off with that. And the lack of communication, the sirens not going off, the water not being used, I mean, you could go on and on. And then they're lying to us about the people and the children. That's why a lot of people have been contacting me, because they want to know what happened to the kids. Well, all you got to do is extrapolate. There's 3,001 students in Lahaina. 1,000 of them have been accounted for. They're going to either alternative schools or online. That's 2,000 children not accounted for. And I looked over at the policeman and I said, you know, what are you doing? And he says, I'm just following orders. I said, there's a fire back there, you know, and he goes, well, I'm just following orders, and I'm wondering what is going on. Well, it's something probably anyone who's been on the internet for 30 years like I have knows that BlackRock and Vanguard are the owners of the Hawaiian Electric Company, where FEMA's staying at their $1,000 plus rooms is owned by Bill Gates. All the same names keep popping up. The sheriff who was involved with the Las Vegas debacle, he was here for 5 weeks. He wants a 29% increase in pay, and he's not only the police chief, but he's the coroner.
Right,
and
which is against the statute, right?
Against the statute, supposed to be law, but
right.
There it is. You know, what are you going to do about it?
Right.
So he's in charge as the coroner. Well, it's the same as Hunter Thompson, who wrote a book on George Bush, and he was very excited about getting it published. 2 days before it was getting published, he committed suicide by shooting himself in the head twice. The coroner put it out as a suicide. So.
First of all, thanks, Josh, for having me on the show. I appreciate it. I've been following you for years, and I just want to give you a shout out for what you've done as a patriot and for leading the charge in this thing. And everything that they said was a conspiracy has always seems to come true. And I want to get in front of this thing. So we'll talk about what's happened, but I really want to encourage your listeners to let's get into action here. Let's make this a call to action, not just to fellow patriots, but to the world, because I believe this is the beginning of something really bad, or it could be the beginning of something really amazing in terms of an awakening. And this is now on the world stage, and this needs to be played out in the world court, if you will, because there's people that died here that were from all different countries. And as you know, a lot of things become an issue as jurisdiction, and I don't believe this is no longer in the jurisdiction of Hawaii. I believe this is not even in the jurisdiction of the federal courts. I believe this is in the jurisdiction of the world, and the world needs to pay attention and needs to wake up. But I'll walk you through what's happened so far, and I could go through the colossal list of items that have gone wrong.
Please, you live there. You break it down.
Okay, the colossal list of everything that went wrong simultaneously, and I'm not here to point the finger at who or what. I'm just going to show you what we are seeing and what we've seen. But let's begin with the first thing, which is the total utter lack of communication that we've had on the west side of Maui. I'm here just north of the burn zone, north of Lahaina, very close. The fire came within a mile or two of my home. We've been evacuated 3 times. We've had fields set fire around my home. Just the other day, I went live with a fire that broke out just a few yards from my house spontaneously in the middle of the day. On that particular day, the alarms went off. Chinook helicopters came in. We got text messages. So it's almost like they're trying to show that they're competent now. but back when the big fire broke out, and there was multiple fires. It wasn't just a fire in Kula that broke out, but also a fire in Lahaina. But there was multiple different places where this thing broke out. On that particular day, everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. For example, there was no sirens. Hawaii has the most sophisticated siren system. It did not go off. And they try to spin it by saying that we're trained as the people here to run uphill because it's a tsunami warning, but their own website says it's not. It's for emergencies. And when the alarm goes off, you're supposed to tune in to find out what the danger is and act accordingly. But to this day, they haven't retracted their statement that's saying it's for tsunamis only. Even if it was, people would not run uphill into a fire. So the sirens did not go off. The text messages, we receive text messages all the time for emergencies. Those text messages also were not sent out. And we were able to receive text messages throughout this entire breakdown of communication. Text messages always worked. We could never respond to them, but the text messages didn't go out. Water was not provided in the area of the fire. I have eyewitness accounts of people that came home that morning and they couldn't take a shower. They couldn't turn their washer at home because there was no water. So the firemen had no water to fight this fire. And then they try to say it was because of some kind of water rights issue, which is ridiculous because either the water works or the water doesn't work. So why was the water turned off? That day at 4:30 in the morning, there was no power. Power was turned off on the entire west side of Maui. So later on in the day, you'll find out they were trying to redirect cars around down power lines as if the down power lines were dangerous because of electricity, but there's no electricity running through those down power lines. So they could have quickly, moved those poles or sawed them or done something. But instead, you saw people getting corralled literally into the town of Lahaina in the direct path of the fire. And that is irrefutable. I have many accounts.
And I don't mean to interrupt you, but you're the expert, but I've been following this very closely. Some of the main power lines out on the highway were turned off, but the particular power lines in the town, we've seen the footage, and they've admitted, even the Wall Street Journal and the Washington Post, that indeed they left those on. We've seen those falling down and starting fires. So can you explain that to us?
Well, I can only go from what I've heard personally and talking to people is that the power was lost at 4:30 the morning of the fire, 4:30 a.m. I have other people that have reported that there were certain there's websites where you can see where there was different pulsing through the electrical system, but we did not have any power. A silver lining in all of this is because there was no power. The restaurants were closed that morning. The shops were closed that morning because no one could obviously, transact business. So, in a sense, that was a godsend because the Lahaina town wasn't full of all the normal hustle and bustle because there was no power that morning. There was definitely no cell communication. You could not call anybody. You could not get on the internet that morning. It was a complete communications blackout. And then on top of it, you have absolutely no support on the ground from people going door to door knocking or bullhorns. The people were warned by word of mouth. The only warning that they had with this blowtorch coming at them was word of mouth warning. Also, I noticed at 10:30 in the morning a massive black cloud of smoke that looked like the 9/11 towers. And so there was a small brush fire that occurred that morning. And a message went out for that saying 100% contained. So they actually put everybody at rest saying that the fire was contained that morning. So there was even misinformation happening, trying to make people feel like they were safe when in fact they weren't. But the fact that people were guided into the fire and then got trapped and were going in circles in this small little Lahaina town, it's incomprehensible.
All right, I want to keep making your points, but let's walk through this. The government is now saying only some of the power was turned off. The Washington Post is reporting that it wasn't turned off. I'm not wedded to the idea that power lines did it, even though we have footage of power lines falling and causing fires and transformers blowing up. But clearly, something massive burned that town down. I've not poo-pooed directed energy weapons. I know they're real. Like one of the biggest bases of them is based in Maui. They could have drones go up and do it, and no humans could be involved other than those that launched the attack. But regardless, for folks that don't know, we'll pull up a map of Lahaina. They're in Maui. They're in western Maui and describe the roads coming in for people and what has now been confirmed that police blocked both sides of the main road. I guess that's Front Street coming through the town from the west and the east. Is that accurate?
Yeah, so if you look at a map, you'll see that there's basically two different highways. You have the bypass that comes down and dumps into the north. We're about the middle part of Lahaina. That's called the bypass. They just opened that, 4 or 5 years ago. And then you have the old highway, which is the Honopinilani Highway. And then on the other side of that, to the west of that, you have basically the town of Lahaina. And you've got a number of side streets, but then you have Front Street, the world famous Front Street, that's sort of like the PCH. It runs right across up the coast. So ultimately, as people were trying to get in to just get through town, go around town, they tried to go up the bypass. They're trying to leave town. They got turned around. The bypass was closed, so you couldn't. So if you were leaving town, you just got turned right back around. If you tried to go south on the highway, you got turned. Everyone got routed into the town of Lahaina, and once you got into Lahaina proper, if you tried to leave to the north or to the south or any of the side streets, Ed Cheney, many different witnesses said that there was two police cars that would block that. The owners of Island Lock and Safe, they were just in my home the other day. They also basically testified to that everywhere you tried to leave, you just kept getting routed back into it under the guise of down power lines. However, looking at some of this footage, you can see there was a clear path to the north, there was a clear path to the south, and on top of it, the cars that were coming into Lahaina, they didn't block the traffic like, a mile or two away, preventing this. They had a small blockade, and they were allowing this traffic to come into Lahaina because people were trying to get to their kids, they're trying to get to their houses, they're concerned, but they were allowing essentially a traffic jam very close to the north end of Lahaina. And then on top of it, the people that were coming down to the south, they were getting routed into a neighborhood called Wahikuli that later on burned, but they weren't turning people around to go back to the north. They were putting them into another neighborhood that was getting ready to burn. So the traffic control during this disaster is incomprehensible, that there could be that level of incompetence, basically directing people into the path of something extremely dangerous, extremely hot burning, and just a force of nature that we've never seen before.
Now, we've still got about 5 minutes to break. Let's talk about something you just mentioned a few minutes ago. You live there on the edge of town, and where you're saying suddenly fires out of nowhere. There's no power lines, there's no people right around your house. And obviously, you're a very outspoken person. We have weird leftists showing up harassing reporters that are on the War Room with Steve Bannon. Other reporters are having weird Antifa type dudes in black show up. They know where they are, and they threaten them to stop covering it. We're going to show footage when we come back, you getting manhandled. There's a 12-mile exclusion zone. They're putting up big black divider fences up all around the town. They don't want people on record, even mainstream media, showing the damage. So something's being covered up here. You're there showing cars that are 100 yards from anything, even a fire, that are burned up. I mean, that does lean towards directed energy or something. I can't deny it. And so maybe it's a mix of these things. But you talked about arson. Here it is, BBC. Greece wildfires, 79 people arrested for arson. There's high winds, it's dry. They went and caught 79 people setting fires. And we know environmentalists just don't block roads like Extinction Rebellion. They don't just cut off our pipelines. They don't just put these big derailers on trains. They've been caught everywhere. When they get caught, like right during the election in 2000, they caught hundreds of arsonists setting fires on the West Coast. And the same thing, the utilities owned by BlackRock again, on average, they own, 98% of your utilities, or 96%, they won't trim back the trees now, but only in select areas, knowing it's going to happen. So here's footage of Greece, and people having to evacuate to the water, and the police have caught 79 people doing it. And they say in the Greece news, they say it's environmental groups doing it. So this is disgusting. So can you give us your view on that? And specifically go back and elaborate. We'll go to break and talk more about it. But on where you live. You got a couple places. You're blocked out of your house right now. You're somewhere else. And now folks know where you are, and magically fires are popping up right around you. I mean, let's walk through that.
Yeah, it's a real mystery. Matter of fact, the most recent fire that broke out just a couple of days ago is I live in an area called Ka'anapali, which is right above the hotels where they're housing all the survivors. And ironically, FEMA and all the other agents are down in Wailea, which is a long way from here, like 45-minute drive minimum. So why there's a separation between the federal help and the Red Cross is very strange. But to answer your question, Alex, these fires have just been popping up. And I've got video of the one that I just shot live the other day, where the area where the fire probably started, they immediately had a D8 out there pushing dirt over where the fire started. And I thought to myself, why isn't there an investigation to see what started this particular fire? So, yeah, it just seems very unusual how these fires started. But I think the question I want to ask the world is, what are we going to do about this, right? What are we going to do? We can talk about what happened and how it happened and all that stuff, but what are we going to do about our rights that are being violated right now? We're not allowed to take pictures. We're not allowed to fly drones. We're not allowed to see what's going on and or collect evidence to see if there was any kind of an accelerant. What is America going to do right now to stop the cover-up? Because if we don't stop this one, it's going to be in your backyard next. So what can we do now to find out what they've done and to stop the course of action, whatever their plan is? We need patriots to step up. This isn't entertainment. This is a call to action to the world.
You know, I watched you a lot in the last few weeks, but in the last few days you did 2 different videos with Fish. I forget which one it is. We've got both of them in the computer. We can play them. I don't know if it was you or Fish, you both agreed. They said, listen, this is a model of how to burn people out everywhere. Well, actually, I've already been tracking that. California is where they first started this decades ago, where areas they want to move poor people out, they're in wealthy areas they're about to grow to. They don't trim the trees, they don't trim the brush, and then it's able to burn them out, but they do in the wealthy areas. And so we see a repeat of the perfect conditions, and that's exactly what's going on here. The left is using arson. It's confirmed. It's all part of their takeover. On a scale of 1 to 10, them blocking traffic's 1. Them burning your house down is 9. You know, cutting your pipelines off is 5. This is a war against our industrial civilization. We need to recognize it and understand it.
Sure. So basically, this is an area that's about 2 miles from the burn, so quite a ways. There was a small brush fire around this area, and they have set a perimeter up around the burn area with these tight lock, New Zealand tight lock style fences, super high with black dust fence you can't see in. But now they have these sheriffs that come up to you if you just pull over onto the side of the road for even just a few seconds, and they come up and they tell you, hey, you can't park here, you got to leave. You know, no photographs, no images. FEMA even announced they're not going to allow any photographs or images from the area in respect for the dead, which, you know, everyone's been basically pulverized to death.
Yeah, I would imagine the dead. I would imagine the dead want the responsible punished. How dare them use the dead? How dare them speak for the dead?
It's crazy. And the fact that the media, I've had many media outlets, Epoch News, mainstream media, even you know, KITV here telling me that their media passes, they have to sneak in. The media is not being allowed into areas of this burn. Even at the very inception, people went back home with their media passes tucked between their legs because they couldn't get in to where they wanted to go.
The answer is everybody needs to land by boat and just overwhelm the, quote, authorities that are the people that are covering this up. Because they're the very police who work for the system that block people in the town telling you you can't go in. Massive conflict of interest.
Agreed. I just received this text when I just, during the commercial break there, and I'm just going to put it out there. I don't believe there's any accidents, right? I just don't believe in that. I believe everything is being orchestrated by forces of good as well to help us in this. But I just received a text message, and again, I'm just going to throw this out there, Alex, but someone just sent me some information. I'm not going to say the person's name, but he's very, very well-known individual, saying that this has something to potentially do with Space Force and is possibly an attack. I'm just going to leave it at that. But I saw
well, we know that part of Space Force is based mainly in Kauai, but also in Maui. That's kind of a big secret that
Correct.
The Hawaiian Islands are a big, giant base.
Correct. And I'm not going to say it publicly on your show, but later on I'll share who this person just texted me. But that's a pretty significant development. The first time I've heard of that concept, but he said that there will probably be military interaction or intervention at this point in time because this could be an attack from somebody. I don't know who, but
well, I mean, I haven't tried to poo-poo direct energy weapons. I know they're real, but the footage you're showing of the trees and grass all fine and cars fried, and that they don't want you to show that is, and we know the Chinese, admittedly, a few months ago scanned the islands with a topography laser. That was on the local news. This is pretty suspicious.
It is very, very suspicious, and I think we need to ask the government to allow for just normal media coverage of this, because I think the blackout of information is not helpful for people that want to know the truth of what's going on. So we got to figure out who the enemy is, so we can find out what their truest intent is, so that we can fight this. We can fight this war. And my job is to bring you the information, because I'm one of the few guys with a Starlink and a little bit of a YouTube channel. And I'm going to show you what we're seeing so that you can judge what it is for yourself.
We've asked Elon Musk weeks ago. He says he's trying to, quote, help. He could deliver 50 Starlinks right now. He could show up and be a hero and set up a media operation there.
I totally agree. And
help coordinate aid, because are they still trying to blockade of the locals trying to bring in food and water?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. I think you can now come over from the other side, and all the donations have been from local private groups bringing in food, but there's a major lack of support from FEMA and Red Cross in the normal ways. I know that they're paying for these hotel rooms supposedly, but you're not seeing a presence from them in any significant way, and that's every survivor I talk to. I ask them, who has been helping you? It hasn't been those major
as
organizations.
If aid workers don't want to go to one of the most beautiful places in the world. And it's the top, there's a cover-up. The system doesn't want people in there. They're putting up black tarps around it. Let's go ahead and roll a few minutes of them trying to keep you from outside the town, showing bizarrely barbecued cars.
Yeah, we're out of here.
We're out of here.
Okay. We're on our way out, sir.
Yeah, guys. How's it?
Yeah, we're not allowing no videos or no picture taking, yeah?
Okay.
Thank you for your service, by the way.
Yeah, no problem.
Good looking out.
Okay, we're good.
Yeah.
We leave right now. We parked over there. We were told we couldn't park down here.
Yeah, this whole area, even down there, not really no parking.
So no media or nothing, yeah?
No.
You ever seen anything like this before?
Not this bad.
Yeah, just open the hood. You want to see under the seat?
No.
I mean, it's.
So the question we're just asking is like, how could this car get this hot with grass? A little grass fire. It didn't jump. That
There's
grass
nothing
is
burned
good.
over there.
There's even a bunch of grass down there that's
come
good.
look under the hood.
How could you melt? Dude, this is like Star Wars kind of stuff right here.
Yeah, it's.
Front street. So like this, but what's strange is you have like
The windshield melted over the shifting, the linkage. I mean, it was
upper part.
like, well, 1,220 for aluminum. But in the back, you can see it liquefied, so that's about 1,500.
How could that thing get hot enough from a little bit of grass? How could that get so hot
the cast
on a
aluminum
little bit
on
of
top?
grass? It didn't even burn the grass down there.
I mean, you could take it
in your
actually
brain
crumble it.
logically, without knowing any
It's
science,
one of those
nothing
things
about
where you just
temperatures.
look and kind of scratch your head
You had
and go.
campfires. How could that melt aluminum and tires and steel braided brake lines when there's nothing around?
I mean, and your if you could just
and
guess.
left it sitting here on the side of this road.
I wasn't here.
No, you don't have to be here. Just look.
The thing is, I'm from.
Even if you torch a car, I don't think you can melt aluminum.
Okay, so
as for the fire was.
If I said I'll give you 10 grand to burn a car like that, what would you need?
I wouldn't even take the money.
You know what I mean?
That's you going to jail and me going to jail.
No, but say it's at a tow yard where it's a crap car.
Yeah.
Not somebody's car, but like how the what's that show where they do? What's that show where they?
That's in the burn zone.
Where like they do the experiments. That's called where they test everything. It's the red hair guy.
The red roof house. That thing's getting famous.
You know which one I'm talking about? Where they reenact everything to prove it wrong or prove it right.
Blue umbrellas,
No, it's almost like a comedy show. It's a redheaded guy.
I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm crazy, but I feel like this is like
Well, that's what I meant. It's like
attack.
That's the way I look at stuff.
Because it doesn't make any logical sense. I've got scientists telling me that it's like this breaks science
show
as we know
is-
it. And this one, to me,
It's
is the
two
one
guys
really
that do
stands
the
out
show.
because there's nothing around.
I mean, they do like dart guns and they do.
It's like how
It's like
one house is burned.
and they show like clips on Hollywood,
Just like here.
and then they prove it that it's like bullshit.
Didn't get
Oh, the
Yeah.
Mythbusters.
Yeah, Mythbusters.
We're gonna get out of here. We
Yeah.
respect you
that's
guys.
it. Yeah, so
Aloha.
this-
Thank you for
this-
doing your job.
Oh, you guys
we love
going
the
out?
sheriffs because you guys are sworn to protect the Constitution. So
We're
thank you.
back and forth. Gotta clear us early.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for your service, bro. Yep. Thank you guys.
Thank you,
guys be
Aloha.
safe, yeah?
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Phillips. And
Okay, that's
boom.
enough. So they're being very diplomatic with the police, but give me a break. They just blocked up both sides of the road. This whole thing went down. You're miles outside town, and oh, you're not allowed to show pictures. Since when in America, miles away from a giant crime scene, where they're putting up black walls around it? I mean, this is not America. This is disgusting. I want to know who gave the orders to block the town. I want to know who gave the orders to leave the power on. Who wouldn't let them have the water? Well, they already admitted it. Who didn't turn the sirens on? Well, the mayor admits it, the emergency manager. And then, I'm sorry, we can be nice to police so far, and I know you got to be there. You got to deal with them. But man, I got to tell you, Eric West, this is disgusting.
It really is. And also we have the chief of police, who is also the guy from the Vegas shooting. Also, I think he went to the FBI Academy. Why is he allowed to be the coroner when that is against the rules, essentially? And how do
Not
we stop
essentially. They
that?
passed a law, as you know, that you can't do that, just last year.
Exactly. Why is it that the emergency management director was off island when this happened? Who was his deputy, and why haven't we heard from his deputy? My brother-in-law was the emergency management director for Douglas County for 20 years. He just retired. He goes, there's got to be a deputy that's in charge. Why are we not hearing from those individuals? Why is it that the mayor gave a press conference on Zoom at 6:30 while half the town had already burned, and he thinks everything is fine? Why would the mayor, how would he not know about the fire happening? They had that Zoom recorded. You can go watch it yourself. So there's just
That's my next point. They manhandle reporters, including yourself and others, at these press conferences where you say, where are the children? And they go, and then grab you. I mean, they're acting beyond suspicious.
Yeah, there's no question. And what did happen to the children? That's a very good question. So we have a crime against humanity here. And my question is what's the world going to do about it? And if we don't start mobilizing as a people and sharing this information with the world, because mainstream media is not reporting the truth, and it's important for everyone that's listening to the show to go and start sharing what information we are presenting so that we can bring awareness to this thing so it can be tried in the world court, essentially, because that's what it's going to take to move the needle.
Absolutely. I love Lahaina. I love Maui. I want to come there, but it could become a circus. Obviously, me trying to blend in and just get footage would be pretty obvious. And, at the same time, we need more reporters, more journalists to go there and to infiltrate and to show where the power lines went down and to show. But as you mentioned, these fires that popped up around your house the last few days because you're not playing ball, and the weird Antifa that are showing up to threaten other reporters that'll be in the middle of the woods, and they have like geolocation, and like Antifa guys in black show up and start going, what are you doing here? Get out of here. I mean, I know the cut of their jib. I know them when I see them. They're there. They're catching Antifa types all over the world, setting fires from Canada to Greece, from California to, they caught a few earlier this year there in Maui catching fires. This is what they do. They hate civilization. They hate the system. The Black Rocks of the world are also at war with it. They're funding them. And I just don't think that there's any denial about what's going here. As a citizen, not giving your facts, but gut level, what are you and the locals saying? Because I already know what you're saying, locals are saying. I want to hear it from you. Because I've watched the different meetings, the emergency management meetings, the city council meetings, the county meetings. I mean, I was like, well, is it just one lady mad? I went and watched a few days ago, like 2 hours of it. Every person was in their face seeing through this. So whatever they thought they were going to get away with here, and whoever ran this, their cover-up's only creating a tug of war here, and I think they've jumped the shark. So what do you, just as a citizen, as a human, as a resident of that area, as a citizen of Lahaina, what do you think happened?
I don't know. I don't know what happened. But here's what I do know. This is a call to the world. This is an awakening, and this is an opportunity for us to bring so much awareness to the situation that whoever they are, whatever force is behind this, and I don't know, but I think the more awareness that we can bring, this is our opportunity to stop it and to create an awakening around the planet to help, because this is an international issue. I've got people calling me from all these different countries, scientists. This is a colossal problem with the environment and what's going to happen with all these chemicals. How do we protect these people from what they're being exposed to right now? Normal protocols are not being met. So I don't know who it is. I don't know how it happened, but what I do know is with awareness and with spreading the message that we can possibly stop this plan, and it can be the beginning of the end for the enemy, and it can be the beginning of a new awakening for our world. And I believe this is the siren call. This is a call to action for communities of people in the world, not just our country, not just Hawaii, but for everybody to start paying attention and waking up, which you've been trying to do for a long time. I believe this is the chance, and we do it for the children. We do it for the children. If you won't do it for the children, if you won't do it for Maui, what we call paradise, if you won't step up and defend this, you're not going to defend it when it comes to Kansas. You're not going to defend it when it comes to some small town and in some rural place that no one cares about. If you won't step up and help Maui, if you won't do it for this place, guess what? They're going to take everything.
All right. I asked you before you went live with us, I said, oh, they're trying to blockade. I looked you up. You're a trusted guy in the community. Everything about you's nice. So when I see some big viral thing, I go, well, let's look that guy's name up. Long history. Everybody loves you. Everybody loves fish. And it turns out everything you said weeks ago turned out to be dead accurate from your perspective. It was worse than what you thought. And I said, how do I support? And you said, well, they're attacking me. They're coming after me because I'm trying to get support and get media in and get support. And you said, I don't know how far I want to go with this, but, we want to try to raise money for them, and I'm going to get more attacked. Imagine good people that live there. You got a house, you're kicked out of it, you're living on the edge of town, the police won't even let you in, and then you're kind of like, well, I'm a local, I want to help them. I mean, I had to convince Fish, who's basically homeless now, to try to raise a little money for him. But yeah, we've kind of got a plan. We'd like to directly, if good people don't raise the money, who will know we'll deliver it all, nobody is. So I want to play a clip of you yesterday, and what looks like, I'll be honest, is not a regular fire. I know he can fly over and doesn't get grass but burns cars. This does not look normal. We know they've got microwave weapons, not lasers, but microwaves that will do this to cars. Pentagon's had it for at least 70 years. Yeah, they've had it right after World War II, and they had it perfected by the 90s. And I'll leave it at that, because I know some people very close to me that worked in those weapon systems. Didn't give me the classified info, but they just said, if you think lasers are powerful, you ought to see what microwaves do. And then after... Yeah, on that note, Alex, I had a gentleman call me yesterday. In 1972, he helped install a microwave unit on a KC-135, and he said they were flying it at 50,000 feet over Vietnam, and they were able to take out Jeep radars in a small Jeep with a microwave device in 1972. And he said, Eric, I had to sign all kinds of papers that said I wouldn't say a word until the late 80s. But if they were doing that in 1972, I mean, I'd never heard of it, honestly, but imagine what the technology can do today. Well, he's dead now, so I can talk about it. But right before, he was a tough guy. Raymond Teague ran the main mission for the cameras on the moon, all that. He was Air Force intelligence, a whole bunch of tours in Vietnam. And he died like 2 weeks later. He used to work for me, actually, for about 5-6 years. But he would never tell me. He had presidential letters on his wall from Nixon and stuff, because he headed up main mission controls, one of the main bosses. And he said, well, my heart's going. I'll probably be dead in a few months. But I'm not going to tell you everything. But he said the space program is real, but we're not showing you everything. And you ought to see the stuff we had in Vietnam, the microwave weapons, all of it. And he just basically told me a whole bunch of stuff about that. And then I was like, okay, Raymond, well, I had a good hamburger. I'll see you. And I was at his funeral 3 weeks later. I wish I'd have pumped him more, because I'm just sitting there eating a hamburger and drinking a beer. He's a really smart, funny guy. Became one of my dad's best friends. He and my dad used to go hunting all the time. I mean, we're talking a month out of the year those guys hung out. He was also from East Texas, close where my dad came from. But he told me so much stuff, basically similar things, that he said, what you see in space is basically fake because they're not showing you what they really got. So when I hear space lasers, it's easier to think, well, power lines fall down, which we know some did. But then I see the other footage. I know that stuff's real. And I think, well, like you said, space is hard to send the main beam through because it hits water vapor. There's like 10 feet of water in the first 15,000 feet of the atmosphere. So that laser's got to cook through that. But in C-130s or even in smaller aircraft, they've got lasers and microwaves now that will blow a car up in seconds. You hit that car with it, the car explodes. The battery, everything sets on fire. And yeah, there's a whole lineup of them right there. So, and it turns out that Maui is the second largest base of these in the world, or for the United States. So they don't need pilots to take off now. They've got drone operated, any aircraft. And so they can just give them an order, they go up. And I'm not saying it happened, but we should be looking at the FAA records and others or independent radar of what was in the air. Because if there were some big aircraft circling right before this started, then that's where we need to look. So all these sleuths know how to track Elon Musk where he flies and stuff. Folks, let's use that same technology to track what was there. Let's play a few minutes of you with the burnout cars.
Below Lahaina Luna High School in the neighborhood that did not, I repeat, did not burn. You can see all these houses are standing around here, unburned. There's no burn here, okay? So to me, this is like something out of a space movie, because you have this small field with some grass that burned, right? You can see where the grass burned. But then you have these two vehicles sitting in here that have melted aluminum. So Donovan, if you want to just take us through this car real quick and show us, I know you know a few things about cars, you can point out some things that require a very high temperature. By the way, we just talked to the neighbor who was talking to an investigator in Lahaina Town yesterday, and he said the investigator told him the temperatures reached in excess of 3,000 degrees. So tell us what you got, Donovan.
Well, we have about 300 degrees for aluminum, and this
300?
1,300.
1,300, okay, thank you.
1,300, well, 1220, but if you round it up, because it was not only melted, it was liquefied to the point where it became a river of aluminum going down the dirt hill.
So this is the aluminum rim, obviously. There's the tire, what's left of it, the steel threads or steel belts.
And maybe combination gas tank if the gas tank's aluminum.
Okay, okay. So you have liquefied aluminum running down the side of a grass fire.
The caliper melted, unless they stole it, but it looks like the bolts are still there. So that, and then you get the steel belt of the tire, which is just a bunch of a wire mesh laying there, and you have the windows that were melted, the back window. If you look at the big old, almost like
the glass is just melted.
Tell you what, sir, if you do a few more minutes with us, maybe 5 minutes the next hour, I want you to be able to finish up. But before we get any further, what are the best charities to give to that are actually getting stuff to folks? And I know you're stepping up to do it as well because people are challenging you to. How do we get aid to people right now?
Well, we've started a GoFundMe called LahainaFireFund.com. It's part of our organization called Maui LFG. LFG stands for Let's Find the Gap, Let's Fill the Gap, Let's effing go, because we've been mobilized to find areas of need. And so you can give to us. We are going to give every penny back to people that are affected by this fire. We're going to give it $10,000 at a time. We're going to catch that on camera and help people with 10 grand, 10 grand, 10 grand. And then on top of that, we're going to share their Venmo, their GoFundMe. So we're seeding them with 10 grand and then hoping that people will continue to give to them directly.
Because the feds are sending $700 and trying to keep everybody out so they don't get aid, so they can be forced to sell. It's very clear what's happening. This is so obvious.
Thank you, Alex. They're choking off the people of Lahaina. They're hoping that they'll all leave, and they'll have to. And if you want to talk about a land grab, the only land grab I'm seeing here is the banks, right? All of these properties are basically, most of them are mortgaged. So if they have to make their payments for the next 2 to 3 years, taxes, they can't afford that.
And hold on, do more time and explain this, but we're going to put the URL up, slowly give it to everybody. Where do people go to give donations to go right to the people so the locals like you can stabilize it and not have the globalists come in and the 100 billionaires, that's conservative, that are in the area trying to steal the land, that drove up the prices, they're trying to force them out. Where do people donate?
LahainaFireFund.com. LahainaFireFund.com.
All right.
That's a very good question, Alex. I saw a news clip the other day asking, where is the outcry from the local Hawaiians or from the people that live here? Because it seems to be, I think it's a situation where it's like a bomb just went off, right? I mean, it's literally, we are in survival mode, and we're also devastated, and they don't have anything. So imagine the majority of the people that live here, they don't have anything. They don't have a possession. So it's hard to kind of fathom. So I think they're mainly just shell shocked, but they don't really. They're in a state of confusion. They're trying to get resources. They're being told to go here and do this. Go to this website. You don't have any internet connection, right? So it's like,
so basically, you'll own nothing. You'll like it.
Correct, but it's like you live in the people watching this or listening to this. You live in a paradigm of you have access to the necessities. You have access to an internet or a phone. These people have access to nothing, and they're just displaced. So you're talking about.
So they're like the Japanese after bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Correct, and it's a very remote part of the island. So the rest of the island is a 35, 40-minute drive. They've got easy control points to let people in and out, which you can flow freely now.
For those that don't know, you got big skyscrapers, huge hotels, malls, everything. This is a rural, original seat of the Hawaiian royal family, a whaling town. This is where the blue-collar folks live.
Yeah, well, the people whose homes burned are definitely the blue collar. I mean, it's the lowest end of not a society, but as far as the real estate.
But then all the billionaires, their houses are all green right around there.
Yeah, with blue roofs. But, there is this blue thing going on. Don't quite understand. As a matter of fact, that clip you just showed of the sheriff was showing me a clip on his phone of a car that was red in the middle of destruction, and the red car was perfect. It was his classic car, and he was zooming up on the little bit of melted tail light. But why is this red car perfectly fine?
Yeah, yes, they're saying certain colors the microwaves bounce off of. That's what I've been hearing.
I guess so, yeah. But the other thing that's interesting, Alex, is we are less than 100 miles from Oahu, one of the biggest military installations in the world. Marine, Air Force, Army, all kinds of equipment. They didn't show up. Why is it that there's been very little interaction from such an amazing resource just to reestablish?
Well, I was about to say, we can blame the Chinese all day for directed energy weapons, and I'm not saying they aren't involved, but the U.S. government's the one that keeps testing biologicals on us, and with the drones they've got, you could have one globalist give the order and send up drone aircraft and do this.
Correct. And why is there such a minimal response? They had multiple Chinook helicopters here for the little 3-acre brush fire the other day with alarms, with sirens, with text messages. Where were they the day of the fire? This thing started early in the morning and burned all night long.
And let's go back. We have the head of the water district, we played the video, who's on the Obama Foundation saying we denied them water even when the fire, that day they denied it.
Yeah, I think they were just trying to dip into a water reservoir.
Talk about that for people that don't know.
So again, they spin everything in a way that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but basically the water was shut off. So forget about water rights. Nothing was coming out of the spigots or the hoses, okay?
Funny, you're in a burned down building and blue shirts are just fine. Now I'm starting to think something's going on now.
Yeah,
for folks who don't know, light only hits certain things. So they always said, like, a spaceship that wants to be anti-laser or a continental ballistic missile with MIRV technology, when it pops open, about to launch missiles into the atmosphere, launches from Russia over the North Pole, it's still in space, MIRV opens up, launches 24 warheads, 12 of them are decoys, 12 are warheads, but they would jacket them in glass so that lasers would bounce off. So I know that's basic technology, but why are you in burned out buildings with blue shirts laying there totally fine? And people are showing it. See? Look, it doesn't hurt it. And anybody knows this that's played around with lasers. I have as well, just here in the office having fun. Years ago, we did a little joke with Lego toys, vaporizing them with a cheap $100 laser. A black piece would melt immediately, but a white piece, reflects light, so does baby blue, wouldn't burn. So show that footage again. Sorry, go ahead, sir. You want to say anything about this, Eric West? I know I'm ranting.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah. I knew less about lasers than anybody, so I just found those blue shirts. By the way, they're being returned to the owner of that store. I think they need to be submitted for testing for any kind of accelerants, but essentially we have all kinds of weird blue things that didn't get burned, and some blue tiled roofs, and some red things.
But we're
So
showing
it's just,
blue fabric isn't burned by a laser. Everything else is. White barely burns. Blue won't burn. Everything else burns because it's absorbing it.
you also have trees that are perfectly fine next to buildings. And I've got so many people that have reached out to me from the Paradise Fire, from Malibu, from the campfire. They're saying, we saw the exact same phenomenon. It's just, here's the problem. Nobody seems to listen or believe. It seems too crazy or outlandish. But if you don't listen to this, it's going to be in your backyard. This is just the beginning. So we take a stand now. We draw a line in the sand now. Or it's just, they're just going to keep being successful. Whoever they is, I don't know. And how they did it, I don't know. But we do know there's enough gut feeling here. There's enough fishy stuff going on. That fish was nice enough to point out, and everything he said has been corroborated by other individuals, that it's time to take action.
Well, don't you remember? I mean, there's been so many examples of this, but man, the left's being caught everywhere setting fires. And I figure it's arsonists and them not turning the power lines off. I think that was part of it. But I think they probably did use some directed energy from what I've seen now. And then they used the power lines as the fallback story. I think they were part of it.
I agree. There's a lot of misdirection, a lot of misinformation.
Well, notice they hit, you're a real estate agent. That's the second most expensive real estate in the world because everybody wants it. What is it, like thousands of dollars per square inch?
I mean, a very old home built in the 70s, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, cinder block construction would be, $800,000-$900,000. So the average home price on Maui is $1.2 million. But yeah, certainly the stuff that was burned on Front Street, I mean, my goodness, that is some of the most expensive real estate. And some would say that it's the best spot in all of Hawaii. This is where the royalty chose to vacation during the Hawaiian Kingdom. This was their capital. You could say this is the heart of Hawaii.
Wow. Well, if they wanted us to just buy their official story, it's not happening. As sad as this is for the dead, we should mourn them. And it helps, obviously, they're on the way, not from the government. This is definitely blown up in the system's face.
I agree. And it's time to move the needle on the media because the media is not getting access. So all we have left is we the people. All we have left is platforms and sharing and you being a digital warrior, going all night long until your fingers bleed. Do things. I think this is a call to action. This isn't just something you watch from afar and go, oh, how interesting. You do something, whatever it is, say a prayer and ask God, what are you to do? Because the battle is here. It's now. It's happening. And we need to mobilize. We can pick on Maui. It's this little place in the middle of nowhere. Guess what? This is United States soil. And if you're a patriot, it's time to do whatever it is that God is calling and asking you to do.
You're gonna burn. You're gonna burn.